Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to some of the world's biggest stars and some of my favourite people. And a man I've admired for many years is called Terry Alderton. He's a top comedian. He tours the UK. He's just been in Eastenders and he joins us on the phone now. How you doing?
I'm all right, Alex. You all right?
Yeah, I'm really good. Do you know, I've been a great admirer of yours. You've got such an energy about you and you pound on a stage and you don't let the audience breathe because they're too busy laughing. There's not many people do that anymore, are there?
Well, I don't know. Well, I mean, there is that, and sometimes it doesn't quite go like that, to be honest with you. But, I just think you just got to get on with it and keep it going. I think it's more of the fact that I'm scared that they're going to find me out within the hour. Sitting here after half an hour going, he's just a lunatic, isn't he?
I suppose, really, you were the original The Only Way is Essex, because you were sort of the Essex lad before it became cool.
Well, I mean, when I first started, I really played on the whole Essex boy. You're right. Back in what, 91, 92, that was kind of my thing. You know, that was what I was playing. I was the Essex boy. You know, I was from Essex and I was this. You know, and it was always quite frowned upon, which is quite funny, isn't it? You know, it's quite like, you know, because when I started, what was known as then the alternative comedy circuit. You know, and you had the mainstream circuit, which was more your traditional sort of Butlins kind of thing. You know, I walked into quite snobby dressing rooms, you know, it's kind of working class, like Jack the Lad walking in, and it was a bit like, what are you doing on our circuit, you know? So it was kind of like that for me, and I did play on that whole Essex thing, all right, yeah.
I want to say this with the greatest respect, and I mean it with love. I think you should be a bigger star in comedy, because to me, you're right up there with the Brian Connollys. Do you have any bitterness about that? I mean, you've had an amazing career, so it's all relative, of course.
Well, no, look, it's been said a lot. I won't deny that, and that now sounds like I'm blowing my own trumpet. People have always just said, why are you not bigger than you are? And I think it's a combination of things. It may be slightly to do with some management, you know, slightly to do with some wrong turns along the way. Also, you know, I wasn't a very mature 27-year-old. What I mean is I wasn't businessly minded. You know, I wasn't someone who would look at it like someone like Michael McIntyre and people like that, who their late 20s were more sort of directional and would know where they wanted to go. They had their 5-year plan, if you like. I was never like that. I was doing gigs, and, you know, if I was good enough, that was my thing, that, you know, if you were good enough, you get picked up and you become a star. So, you know, that's kind of a slight look back on maybe where it all didn't quite happen. But actually, it's not even hindsight, really. It was more, really, I'm glad it's happened as it has, because I wouldn't have found what I am now. I would have ended up just being some sort of traditional sort of, maybe by the wayside already, kind of entertainer, and I didn't want to ever be that. People were trying to push me to be the new Barrymore, you know, people going, you know, you're going to be like Barrymore, and I was going, I am, you're right, when really I was going, I want to be more like Spike Milligan, you know, that's more where, I'd not be like, you know, that was more my thing, you know, Milligan and Everett, these are the people that I loved, you know, I mean, it's not no disrespect to Michael Barrymore on his day, but I was being pushed into a more traditional thing, because that's where I'd come from, so everyone just seemed to believe it, and I, unfortunately, you know, like I say, in my mid to late 20s, and maybe even the early 30s, was quite easily led, and didn't sort of go, well, actually, hold on, this is what I want to do. Now I'm sort of in the place where I am now, you know, and after I reinvented myself in about 2006, 2005, I came back to comedy, and that was a point when I actually, and even more so now, and probably in the last 4 years, it's that 40 thing when you suddenly go, do you know what, you can all just go away, I don't need you, you don't need to need me, I'm going to do my thing. So, but I've been very blessed, don't get me wrong, you know, maybe I'm not, you know, up there with the most famous of people, but I have had absolutely, and still have a very charmed life. I've completely travelled the world doing comedy, all through my, you know, 27 years or whatever. You know, whether it be Japan, or whether it be France, or whether it be, you know, touring the whole of Canada. You know, it's been amazing, and it still is a great thing. And, you know, going to Eastenders was a kind of another little piece of the jigsaw that I was quite happy to be doing, you know, because I toured the world, and it's been brilliant. I mean, I'm talking myself into a corner now, but it has. I've been very lucky.
Yeah. And what I love about you is you're credible. You are always you, and that's only to be admired, as you are with this new show. Back on Radio 4, Terry Alderton's All Crazy Show. It's going to be on the 12th and the 19th of August at 11 p.m. Again, that's a great vehicle for you, because that's the home of proper comedy, isn't it? If you want to do it on the radio, Radio 4's the place to do it.
Well, I'll cut this story straight down for you, but it's a very interesting thing. I did a lot of the work with my best friend Johnny Sterling, right, and he and I did a lot of this stuff for the show that we've done. But I bring him into the story because, when I was doing Eastenders, he would be going to me all the time and go, you should be. It's not that he was against I was in Eastenders, but he said, you're more than this. What are you doing? You're more than what's going on here. You've kind of just settled for this. And I was quite happy with that, And then, of course, when I came out of it, I got this Radio 4 commission, which in my back of my head, I went, I'll just do some stand-up on it, and I want to be back in EastEnders. That's kind of where I was. And I went back and did a little bit in EastEnders. And everything had changed. I'd gone in as a guest, I was in a guest dressing room, and it was all a bit different and a bit weird, and there was building work going on. It wasn't what I'd remembered, it was a bit weird. And I was driving home, and I had this epiphany. And I rang Johnny up, and I said, listen, I said, all these years I've been trying to do and get away with my stand-up, my kind of crazy kind of comedy, and people have always come back, producers and what have you, and gone, yeah, we like it or we don't like it, whatever, but it's too out there for us, and I've never had a chance to do it. And I said to John, we've actually I've got a chance now. I've got a commission on Radio 4, and as you say, the home of comedy. I've got a commission, and I'm suddenly realising that I've just thrown this thing away when really I should be grasping it and getting hold of it and doing what I want to do. And Johnny, with no expletives, now you realise, and
yeah.
I was like going, and then he's got a little studio in his garage. We spent 7 weeks solidly every day in that studio, and and it's a great thing about technology, we're just throwing it up to the producer, and then a couple of times over the sort of couple of months we would meet up together in studios, whether it be down here or in Scotland, and we'd sort of put this show together, and then I moulded the show in my head how I wanted it to be, and it became what it is, and I just wanted to make a piece of something, whether people like it or don't like it. It's a point that I wanted to make something that would stand out, so if it was the most hated show in the world or the most loved show in the world, I wanted it to be alongside, and not saying that it's as good as or anywhere near as the Goons and all this kind of the Everett's, but I wanted to make something that was original and different and using 2015 technology, because that's where we are.
I heard the first episode, and it is hysterical, but it also made me a bit sad because I'm a radio guy. That's all I've ever done, and I love Kenny Everett. It's a shame, isn't it, that now what you do is so extraordinary, whereas it was happening on breakfast radio up and down the country 30 years ago.
Well, you know what it is? I had a few of those meetings, I said TV station 3 in a row over a set amount of weeks. Let's just call it insipid TV.
Yes.
You work it out. I sat in those meetings, and all they would say was, as they always do, you're brilliant, we love you, and all that. That's what they always do when you go to these meetings. You sit there and you feel the waves of Southend seafront just wafting over you. And I'm sitting there going, right, okay, yeah, and here comes the butts. But the butt is, we don't make our own TV shows, and, people with production companies, blah, 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 blah. And here's the kicker. This is the bit that you're saying, what I think my answer is. And we've got shareholders, and that's why I think what you're saying, why it's become a place, and it's hard for people to do what they did back then, is because there are shareholders now. There are people, and there are people that are scared. So people aren't going to take that punt, that they're not going to do that, and I think that's why when people say, a lot of TV and radio is spoon-fed lowest common denominator, I think that because people are scared. And the other thing is, when we were kids, sound right old men here, but when we were kids, showbiz made showbiz. That's people who were producers, were people who were dancers. If you take, for example, what's his name? He was at ITV for a while, funny enough, and then he went to America and did his own dancing show, didn't he? What's his name? I can't think of his name. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Come back to me. I know his wife's name, but I can't remember his name. Anyway, showbiz was making showbiz. That's what I was trying to say,
I'm not into those comics who stand there and say, this morning I got up and my mum said to me, you'll never guess what my dad said. I'm not into that sort of stuff. You come on with an act, and that's what's brilliant about it. How long did it take you to develop that? Because it doesn't come overnight, does it?
No, it doesn't. And I was talking about this the other day. The thing with comedy is this, right? It's like learning an instrument, Let's take like a piano or a keyboard, right? You know the chords. There are only certain ways to play chords, and there are probably, I wouldn't think there's an infinite amount of ways to arrange chords. I think there's probably only a certain amount of ways. You could put them together to make tunes. You could say, that tune sounds a bit like that tune, because there's only so many ways you can do it. But there is always timing, which is exactly the same as comedy timing. You'll play to a metronome, etc., or a beat. And I think comedy is very, very similar to music. It's a same sort of thing. You know, there's only so many ways you could do it. So when I attached on this thing of turning around and talking to myself and all this, you know, the point was I wanted to find some other way of being able to you know, put across comedy with the same tricks, because there is the rule of three, you know that the Englishman, Irishman, and Scotsman, if you like, to be impolitically correct, but you know, the boom, you know, it's the boom, you know, it's that whole thing of knowing when to hit the punchline. You see what I'm doing there is timing. You see, so that is a rule that can't be changed. It has to be, because it's rhythm of voice that makes people laugh, right? Yeah. And it's by turning around, and what I wanted to do was set the gag up still, like a ventriloquist does, if you like, you know, set the gag up with the doll, and then punchlines it themselves. Where, you know, I would turn around and talk to these two voices, one back to the audience, which is wrong, right? So I'm going against the grain straight away,
right?
But it's still setting up a gag and then turning around, and you know, one thing I'll do with the voices, one will say, you know, that guy at the front is like Tintin, and the other one will say, do you think it is Tintin? He goes, I don't think it is Tintin. You go, well, maybe it is Tintin. The other one will say, well, find out if it is indeed Tintin. Then I turn around, I go up to the guy, and go, do you have a little white dog? You know, so it's playing with scenario and playing against the grain, but also playing within the rules, because you can only change the rules so much before you become an anti-comic. And when you become an anti-comic, you know, that can just be plainly, you know, you're right up your backside with it, because we're all going, well, it's not funny, is it? And if you're being an anti-comic, well, what is that? I still think there needs to be something in it. You know, I like a bit of anti-comedy, but there needs to still be, because you are...
Well, there's a thin line, isn't there, between it being comedy and chaos, and you don't want to cross that, because if it becomes out of control, people just go, oh, it's exhausting.
You have to have the chaos. The chaos has to, I know my chaos, you know, sometimes it will go off its own thing, but I know I can always I've got little cues and stuff that I'll put it back to that point where I know I can get it back in gear again, you know. I'm old enough and so seasoned that, you know, I also know that if I lose, I can't lose. You know, I'm sort of at a place now where I have no fear of it. It doesn't. I'm not there to make friends anymore. You know, that's quite a good thing about being older. You know, it's not an arrogance. It's kind of, if you have the fear, then you're not going to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
You know, I truly believe, like, if you look at like Steve Martin and Milligan and people like that, you know, I don't think, you know, you say about the guy who stands behind the microphone, you know, or the girl that does their pattern, they look at their little books before they go out on stage, which I never understand why you can look at material before you go out, because you haven't met the audience yet, so how can you know what jokes you're going to be doing? But anyway, that's how I work. But, you know, when you walk out and you see that and you do your bit and you get your laughs and you say, oh, I had a great gig tonight, you know, there are moments that if you're prepared to die on that stage, I mean, literally just go down the pan, right, then the nights that will work to such a moment that no one can ever feel what you feel when it works.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because you're prepared to go so far with it and take it to the end of your fingers, you know, the end of your toes, that, you know, it's a complete it becomes a piece, if you like, and then that everyone connects. Is a wonderful feeling, as much as it's the most horrible feeling when the whole audience is sitting there hating you because they don't want to come on your journey.
Yeah.
You know, so there's that for and against, you know, there is, but it is that fear of not dying. I did my favourite heckle of all time, though, since I've done this whole thing, was when this woman shouted out to me, there was a pause at a moment, and she went, excuse me, and I went, yes. She went, is this comedy or horror? And I was like, oh, that is lovely. That's lovely. I like that.
I spend a lot of time in Vegas. I love it over there because it's still the last bastion of showbiz where you get all different types of entertainers in one square mile. And I always think of you when I go there because I think you do big business. Is it something you've ever considered, or can't you be bothered?
You know, I'm one of these people that, you know, I spend a lot of time chasing stuff, and I found that really it's exhausting and tiring, and artistically not in any way, there's no gratification to that chase. And what I found was, if I did what I do and keep to that and create my own world, and then people want to gravitate to that, then i.e. if someone from Vegas went, hey kid, you got a great show, you know, do you want to come over? Then I think that would be what I would do. I would never chase it.
Right.
But I wouldn't walk away from it. I think it'd be an interesting prospect. But also, equally, I don't know if I would want to be just stuck in the same room every night doing the same thing. I'm quite lucky at the moment that I can just go, you know what, I will do that gig, I won't do that gig. And that sounds very arrogant, but it's not arrogant. I'm just blessed that I'm in a place where I can do that. And I find that my point, what I make on what I've just said is that then I will do fine gigs. Do you know what I mean? Than rather being pushed into a room going, oh, this is not going to work in it.
I always wonder whether it's a miserable life for comics. When I speak to them, especially the people who are, trying to break Edinburgh at the moment, and they tell me, on a Saturday night they do 8 o'clock in Coventry, 9 o'clock in Leicester, and 10 o'clock in Nottingham. It's a tortuous life, isn't it, in a way, and not highly paid.
No, it's not highly paid. No, and I'm too old for that. Nigel Lithgow, by the way.
There you go. Shall we edit that in a little less?
Lithgow's wife, but I can remember Nigel Lithgow. I knew how he spoke. Terry. Anyway, I can never forget his voice, but I died on the Royal Variety. He wrote me out and he goes, I'm not putting you on the show, Terry. And I thought, I know you're not. Anyway, yes, no, I'm too old for that as well. I wouldn't. It's not a place I would want to be now. I would never go back to that now. There is that saying, never say never, but I wouldn't. I'd sell my house. I would never go. I try and not do corporates. I don't really do them. I'm quite blessed that I do voiceover. That's kind of where I am my living, doing voiceovers for ads, TV ads and what have you. So, which sounds a bit, that's not artistic, is it? But I actually really enjoy doing them, actually, well, unfortunately, you have to do something so you can do what you want, if that makes sense. And I think I can be more artistic if I were free to do what I want to do. Like the radio show, don't get me wrong, there's no big money in that, but whether, you've heard it or you've not heard it, the thing is, there was a lot of work went into that show.
Yeah.
That is a lot of work. Even though it's 15 minutes, I'm telling you now, there's a lot of work went into that.
Well, and that's the problem you've got when somebody like Radio 4 comes to you. You've got to make sure it's good because it's so high profile, whereas your live show, you can do it anywhere, get in and get out, can't you? It is a balance.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when you're on the live show, exactly. You're in for the hour. You live by it, you die by it, you are it. You're the producer, the director, the performer, you're everything. And so it's all on you. But you're right, you're in, you're out of the car. Whereas with the radio show, it's a very much a work in process. I kind of had an idea of what I wanted, but it wasn't until we really started putting things together we were going, oh no, that doesn't work now, and I find actually when I look back on a lot of things that I've made, I seem to always work backwards. I did these, funny enough, ironically, I ended up working with Danny in Eastenders, but I did these Danny Dyer setups when I was doing some stuff for Virgin, and they kind of went a bit viral,
Right.
And I found with those, we would just go out, what I would do is I would just film loads of stuff, little bits of comedy, and then I'd write the story backwards, and I find I kind of do that a lot, actually. I go out and get what I can, and then I seem to write the narrative back. I do it all back to front. The narrative comes after what I've got, if that makes sense. I get the materials together and go, right, what can we do with this? How can we make even the slightest art, That's what I want to do with the radio show. Like we were talking earlier, it's chaos, but there's a small art, the last week's show, there's a whole thing about chicken pole vault through the whole thing. It's not a story about chicken pole vault, but it just ends up with the song at the end, chicken pole vaulting with you, so it goes all the way through, and it's the whole randomness of chicken pole vaulting,
I'd love to be in your brain. I bet you could start a conference.
Oh, mate, listen, let me tell you, there's sometimes I want to be able to take my head off and put it in the fridge for an hour, because, and that's 20 milligrams is not enough, but, thank God for antidepressants, because I'll tell you what, I'll be going mental. I've turned into a Kiwi. It's all good, mate. It's all good. I've kind of realised, I came to a point, and hindsight is a great man, but sometimes, I have to cut myself off, because I look back at the times I was very down and in dark places, and you look back as the wiser older man, they're going, you want to put your arm around that kid and go, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
None of this matters, so it's all good. It's really...
I do think show business is the hardest gig in the world, though, in a sense that you can be high profile 1 minute for 1 second, and then the next second you're sat in your bedroom staring at your laptop. It is a tough game, isn't it, of highs and lows?
And there's peaks and troughs, yourself. But the thing is, I honestly believe, my dad, but this is true. I saw my dad get up at 6 every morning. I didn't. I'd be laying in bed. Of course I would, freezing cold. Like a lot of, men that go to work, and, he'd be in at 7 and I'd see him for half an hour, then, it'd be bedtime. And my dad worked hard for 35 years and was proud to work hard, and that's hard.
Yeah,
it
is.
That's hard. And you imagine as well, and this is only my father and how there's no one else, I'm generalising about everybody else. But if you want a job, My dad didn't particularly care for that much. I mean, he didn't really mind it, but he didn't really love it. You must get to an age when you're 35, 36, 37, there must come a point where you go, well, I'm not going to be the pop star now. And basically, this is me now for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
That can be quite depressing and worrying that you go, I'm going to do this for 30 years, and that's all I'm going to be. That to me, it's claustrophobic.
Yeah.
Some people are happy with that, and some people might think I'm a disgrace for saying that. I'm just being candid. I'm not holding fire,
Yeah.
I'm not saying anyone's right or wrong, or I'm, everyone's got it. And what I'm saying is, it wouldn't be for me. I saw my dad work. So in answer to your question, when people say, is it hard showbiz? Well, really, is it? I mean, if you'd asked me that 10 years ago, I would go, oh my gosh, oh dear me. It's so hard. Well, I mean, I've got money, then I've got no money. My career's great, then it's bad, but now, he's got to look with, I hate to quote this cliche, but it seems to be the word of the moment. It is what it is. So,
Yeah. And of course, when the phone rings and EastEnders want you, that brings you to a whole new audience and a huge audience. But again, it's something different. And that show wasn't necessarily the perfect fit for you because you're so up and funny, and that show isn't known for that, is it?
No, but here's the thing. Now, this is ego now, right? But I'll be just like I said, a bit candid. This is ego. But when you go into EastEnders, and when you're on it, and still now a bit, but when you're on it, after about 6 months of being on screen, it's unbelievable. It really still is, even though it only gets 7 million now, but it still is quite, you're Terry from EastEnders, I'm with Terry, whereas now, are you the bloke from EastEnders? Oh yeah, that's Bianca's husband. Well, we were never married, but that's what I'm seen as now. I'm not even seen as Terry Spraggins from EastEnders. I'm seen as, that's Bianca's husband.
Yeah, you're not even Ricky, are you? I mean, it's...
No, I'm just Bianca's husband, right? And you're going... Now, the thing is, I don't mind being recognised from the bloke from EastEnders. It's not a problem. It's nice. People, they love the show and they like it and blah, blah, blah. But, you want to be recognised as being Terry the comedian. What I do, I want to be recognised for what is my thing, not for being that bloke in EastEnders. You know what I mean? But, like I say, it's just no big blooming deal. But... if I'm being honest about my ego, there's a point where you ask the question where you go, don't really just want to be Terry from EastEnders,
I've been lucky enough to interview a lot of the soap stars over the years, and it comes across as very mundane as a job in a sense that you're there long hours and you get to do very little, and when you do it, you've got to nail it and get in and out. It doesn't sound like much fun as a job. Was it fun for you?
Well, look, I only did it for 10 months, but how I saw it, I just thought it was easy, really. You drive in, you sit around, you have a coffee, a bit of porridge, down your lines, go down, say words you've never said before, supposedly. You might have to do it for a lot of the day. Then I jump the car and go home. You want to be in front of 20,000 people in Stratford doing an Invictus gig, thinking that it's a military gig, but actually it's not. It's a civilian gig, and realising you chose the completely wrong material, and all of a sudden 20,000 people are baiting for your blood. That's hard work.
Yes.
To me, personally, I thought it was great fun. But, here's the thing. A lot of soap stars have been here for a long time, but only been that. They come out of acting school, or they get a few jobs and they ended up in a soap for 10 years. And for them, they're kind of thinking, this is all I've done. I went in when I was, 42, 43, and I'd spent 25 years travelling the world doing stand-up. So for me, there's no kind of, oh, God, this is all I've got. This is all I've become, as an artist or a performer. You see what I'm saying? I think that might get to some soap stars. They might think, this is all I've done. Some are quite happy. I know Adam Woodyatt loves it. He doesn't care.
No.
He knows exactly what he's doing. Adam does,
It's the young ones who were brought up on it for 10 years and leave and then go into obscurity. That must be a kick in the balls because they're known for that and they never get work. And then, of course, they realise they've left and can't go back.
Well, no, that's true. And the thing is yeah, exactly. And the other thing, because what it's like is like, I think you're playing for a lower league team, and after a while, you've been there for 10 years and you realise actually you're a journeyman. You're not going to be picked up with a Premiership, so you might as well just stay playing for Rochdale or something, That's probably a really rubbish simile, but anyway, I've drawn it. I think the hardest thing for people who are soap stars is to come out and then be typecast and not be able to get any other gig, then have no money because of course nothing else comes in, and if you're not working and you can't get a gig, maybe they'll play here and there, as we all know, they don't play the greatest money when you've been on that for every 10 years. It must be hard, as they say, to be famous and skint. I mean, for me, people were kind of going, "Oh, it's a shame. What are you going to do?" You know, and I'll go back to my day job. I'll go back doing stand-up. You know, or you know, fortunately, I'm blessed. Like I say, with voiceover. The thing about it is that you just see it as another. It's just another chapter in what's going on in my life. It's like when I went on, you know, into Eastenders. You know, someone I was quite close to on the team, as it were, the cast, was saying to me, you know, don't bang on about what you're doing outside the show, because you know there are some that will upset, you know, so best just keep everything close to yourself. But in all honesty, I'd already found that I was going to do that anyway, because when I got in, you know, I'd be polite, I'd say hello to everyone, and I'd just pretty much stand my dressing room most of the time, because I just like keeping myself to myself. I didn't want to get involved in any politics. I didn't want to cause any problems. I just wanted to go in, do the gig, go home.
It's funny, when I was at the BBC, they said to me, Alex, don't tell people you're going on holiday. They don't like it. Say you're home doing gardening. I'm like, what are you people? Are you on drugs? One final question. Have you done pantomime? Do you do pantomime? Because you were born to sort of do that and own it. I mean, you'd be amazing at it.
Well, that's very kind of you. I'd be amazing at it. But I did do it when I was a lot younger. Yeah, I did one, did Babes in the Wood, I think in Hounslow, and then I did Robin Hood and Babes in the Wood, and then I did I played Wishy Washy down in Exmouth with John Conti, the old boxer. And I remember one lunchtime performance, walking out and thinking to myself, hold on a second, there's Jeff Green, Joe Brandon, etc. sitting there. They'd all bought little hats and decided they saw my poster because they were gigging down there. I thought they'd all sit in the front row going, hello, Wishy Washy. That was a long time ago. But no, it's not. Look, never say never, all that. But my agent was trying to punt me for them this year. And I love Christmas. You know, I like being with my son, only 8, and maybe in time when he's grown up and gone, I might consider it, but I don't know.
The only reason I say it, and I mean it with huge respect, is that A, it's big money, but B, you've got such energy, and that's what that gig thrives off. And you're smart enough that you can clean your act up. There aren't many people can do it well. That's what I'm trying to say.
I think I'd rather do like a Christmas show. I don't know. I think I'd rather do a Christmas show, like a really nice kind of proper traditional Christmas play. I think I'd be more interested in doing than. I'm a bit funny. I don't know. It doesn't excite me. Put it this way. I know that after it's like a round of golf. You know, I go, oh yeah, brilliant. I'll play. Yeah, cool. It'd be a laugh. And then come like hole 7, I'm thinking, oh no, there's another 9 holes.
Is it ADHD or something? Is that your problem? Because I mean, doing 100 pantos in sort of 4 days or whatever they do, or a round of golf, there's too many holes. I mean, if it was 5 holes, you'd enjoy it.
I just get bored. If it was 5 holes, I would enjoy it. But I'm not going to put myself in labels. So I just find. You know, I don't watch a lot of telly either. I just find things hard. The only thing I do on maths, which you would never have heard me say when I was like 15, because I left school not being able to read and write, of course. But now I'm constantly got my face in my books. You know, I love reading. So that's what I tend to do now. I read a lot. I really do enjoy reading. And you know, so. But yeah, on panto, no. I at the moment, no.
I think you're a fighter. I think that's what I admire about you the most. I can't believe we've never spoken before. You're one of our greatest entertainers. You truly are. Terry Alderton is the man. Find him on his website, terryalderton.com. The Radio 4 show takes place 11 o'clock. You can listen again. That's the best place to get it. And you can listen to it whenever you want, and it'll live on forever. You're a true asset to show business in Britain. You're unique, and your energy is brilliant. I hope you know that. And you're also a fighter. To have the career you've had with, as you say, the disadvantages that you did is remarkable. I hope you know that.
Yeah. I thank you for that, mate. I do appreciate that. That's very nice.
Do a panto. That's all I'm saying. They'll give you 100 grand. Come on, get up and do it. You never know.
Listen, Mr. Taxman. Trust me, 100 grand. Come and look at my bank account.
Good luck with everything. Find tour dates and listen to the Radio 4 show, terryalderton.com. Thanks for talking, Terry.